Welcome back to another edition of the Daddy's Working Podcast. I know. You guys have been spoiled because it's only been me on the air for the last 4 weeks, and I had to bring someone else on. I can't carry this show all by myself. I'm not smart enough. I got to find other cool daddies out there who are doing big things and bring them here to deliver the good news to you. So what is up, Mr. Schoenly? Josh Schoenly on the air. This guy, I've been working with him on and off for years. I have been chasing his tail for probably longer than that. What's up, brother?
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. But you did put a lot of pressure on me here. I mean, you had to bring me on to break the chain there of the solo episode. So no, I'm excited to be here. This should be a good time for sure. So thanks for the invite.
Man, it's been a while since we have spoken. And so for the listeners out there, because I've been following your career forever. And I when I said I was chasing this guy's tail, this guy came into a market I thought after me, took over the whole market, buried me, and I went out of business. And I had to come back and start a new business just so I didn't have to compete with him. But for the listeners out there that don't know, man, tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So for, 10 or 12 years now, my primary businesses that I've built and created have been around helping real estate agents generate and convert leads, primarily online through different platforms, et cetera. I built several businesses in that space over that time, and that's kind of been my passion. I've had a license since mid 2000s. It was inactive for a long time. I've recently reactivated it because of several things, and that may end up being a topic as we go along here. I've been a real estate investor over the years, at some points more active than others, a little bit more active in that space currently than I have been in years past. But my primary day job, for lack of a better term, is helping real estate agents build their business, build their database of leads and clients and referrals. And so, yeah, I mean, that's been my bread and butter for the better part of a decade at this point.
Man, and I don't know how to put this nicely, but I got tired of working with real estate agents after a couple of years, and they wouldn't do the things that I knew were working. How do you keep that passion?
So full transparency, I mean, that is definitely something that I have struggled with over the years. And I would say go through cycles of where, it's more frustrating than others. And what I usually come back to is, what am I not doing? Or what can I do a better job? How can I, be sharper? Or how can I make this such that it is easier, simpler, and there is less friction for them to implement the stuff that I know works, right? Because, and I'm sure you feel this way too, we may have a different understanding of what is the absolute best practices, the absolute best results that you can get, and doing all the minute details to get to that point. But then you've got to take that and you've got to make it such that you can help the greatest number of people. And that may not necessarily be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but rather breaking it down to its more bite-sized and easier to implement sort of fashion. And it's also why we've gone from a company that for a long time, we just offered training and help and support with that. But over the years, we've also started offering actual hands-on help, where agency kind of work, where we actually just do it for them. Because there's some folks, there's a percentage that they want to do it themselves, either because of the cost or that's their, it just fits their personality type. And then there's others that understand the value in just saying, you're the expert, I'm going to let you do it, and I'll take the ball and run with it from that point. But it's real. And the other thing that I think about too, back to the question, is there are no perfect businesses. So it may be frustrating at times to get our clientele to do the work, but I've dabbled in enough other businesses to know that there's always something. There's always going to be something that is frustrating about the business, whether or not it's the clientele or the sales process or whatever it may be. There's no perfect business opportunity or business. There's no perfect business, right? They all come fraught with their own hurdles and problems and so forth. And so that's kind of the thought process that I try to go through when I hit those patches of maybe greater than normal frustration with the market.
This guy's politically correct. I'd be banging my head against the wall and ripping my hair out at times when they weren't listening to me. But that's besides the point. Clearly, I wasn't cut out for that. So, how did you make the transition, man? You guys, I remember you always had tons and tons of info products. You had great funnels before funnel was a thing. You were bringing people in and selling. How did you make the transition from a more product model to the agency model?
Well, I mean, there was no magic anything. It was just more, we knew that there was demand. So we put together an offer and we put it out there. And full transparency, I mean, we've had to and are continuing to evolve and change with that. At the time of this recording, Facebook has recently changed some of their terms of service and regulations and so forth when it comes to real estate ads. And that's been where we've had a ton of success, both for our agency partners and through our courses and so forth. And so, we're going through a little bit of an evolution right now because of that. And, that's another thing that there's two ways to look at it. You can get frustrated or annoyed or whatever, or you can try and look at, well, where's the opportunity within that and try to find that. And that would be like, for me, that's, I'm not always great at that, but I would say that that's one thing that I've gotten better with age and experience of taking problems and flipping those on their head and try to find the opportunity rather than sulking or complaining or playing the woe is me card. Why is this happening? What's the opportunity inside of that problem or issue? And then trying to really chase that opportunity and maximize that opportunity. So it wasn't something magical that we did. It was just a realization, hey, there's demand for this. Let's put together an offer for it and let's start having conversations with people that might be a good fit.
So where or how did you figure this out? Like a lot of people, and it's not just real estate. It's not just entrepreneurs, but I think most average ordinary people will take an obstacle and let it knock them down and cry about it and complain to the world and soapbox on Facebook about it. How'd you make this transition? Because you said you weren't good at it and now you're getting better at it. So where was the realization that you were screwing up and what were the moves that you made to change that mindset?
Well, I would say I couldn't pinpoint one thing, but I would say from listening to mentors, whether it be podcasts or people that I've had direct access to, reading books, having children, being married, all of those experiences and getting my butt handed to me, like a lot, and realizing, I'm not going to fix this situation by sulking or by complaining. None of that is going to help me get out of the position I'm in, regardless of if it was my fault or not. And again, there's still tons of room for improvement when it comes to that, but I know I'm drastically better at looking at things through that lens than I was 5 or 10 years ago. So a combination of age, experience, exposure to people that I've seen either directly or indirectly who have gone through tons of hardships and things like that. And just, faith helps with that too. There's tons of Bible verses that will reiterate this point of, that we're kind of discussing. So there's a whole lot of things that go into that.
Here's the thing, Josh. I know my listeners and what they really like is stories. Can you share a butt handed to me story that you had to work through and show us how that went?
Yeah. So I tend to find like the worst time possible to do something, to jump in something new. So I got my real estate license right as things were tanking and was buying tons of properties, investment properties, just as everything was absolutely just falling off the cliff. And my wife and I have lived in the same house since 2004. It is a house that I would say for some might be modest, but for us, for the way both of us grew up, this is kind of our dream house. But when all of this was happening, it wasn't a dream. It was kind of a nightmare. And there was a couple of months' time where I was pretty sure we were going to have to sell this house and move in with my in-laws.
Wow.
This is when we had one. Our first was pretty little. And I would say that was the biggest thing. Like, I remember the sleepless nights. I remember having this burning sensation in my stomach just from stress and like all this stuff. And coming to a point of realization, I got to do something. I can't just bury my head. I can't wish for something to happen here. I got to get to work. I got to figure something out that's going to work to support, to build a business, to support our family, to stay in this home. And thankfully, by finding an opportunity that really fit my personality and my skill set that I was able to build over the years, I'm able to work out of that situation. But it's happened several times since then, but not to that degree. That was the worst butt handing situation, and it changed my perspective on a lot of things, on debt and risk. And so I wouldn't change that. I think all of that happening has really shaped who I am today. I wouldn't not want to go through that experience, but I also wouldn't wish it on anyone else. And I'd like to avoid going through a similar experience again, if possible. But that would be the thing that I would say was the worst of my entrepreneurial experience, is all of that kind of coming crashing down and having to figure out, okay, I need to really figure out how to build a truly profitable business, and do so in a time that it wasn't real easy to do that. And the crazy thing is, the business that I built out of that was around helping real estate agents during a time where they were leaving in droves. So all of that has shaped that, and plays a big part in the ability to look at what's the opportunity here, not woe is me, and focusing on the problem. Because the other thing is, what you focus on expands. So if all your energy is on, I got this problem, you're not going to find a solution. You're just going to stay stuck in that problem. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a quick question, and I'll explain why I'm asking it. How long did it take you to switch that situation around and get back on your feet?
I think I've tried to block some of that out. But here's the thing. I was starting to get out before it got really bad, because I could see, it was one of those things where it was happening slow enough that I was at least aware, I got to figure something else out. So the solution started before the bottom, if that makes sense.
Wow.
It might just be luck. I can't say it was for some specific reason per se, but I had started to build an asset, which was, in this case, an email database of real estate agents who were looking for help. They wanted help in generating leads and clients and so forth. So I was building this database, and because I had been sort of building that out and putting the work into that prior to hitting rock bottom, I had this base to go from that was this asset that I could leverage and build a business out of. So, I would say probably, anywhere from 90 to 120 days was the real bad time. And there's lots of things you can learn from that. The idea for the entrepreneurs on here, that one offer, one product is really all it takes sometimes to really dramatically change your life. And that was the case for me. It was a product called Buy Our Leads by Tonight. It was a Craigslist training product. And it turned into a monthly continuity program just from different things that happened. And that all is what got me out of that mess, and was able to, it turned into a multi-million-dollar business that we actually sold, and has kept me down, or kept me moving down that path, and is the reason why we're still in that same home, and we have 4 kids now, and and led us to having this conversation right now.
You don't even know this. This is so amazing. I got rocked in that market. I didn't get out early. Oh, it looks like you're sporting the Yeti cup. Hell yeah. But I got rocked in that market. I didn't get out in time, and I got stuck with a bunch of property, bunch of foreclosures, lost everything around that time. And it took me years. It took me almost 2 years to get out. So that's why I was asking you how quickly you rebounded.
I had some of that too. I had foreclosures. We had to file a bankruptcy. And again, I can't tell you why, but thankfully I started, the getting out process started before it got to that point. Otherwise, it would have been longer. And we probably would have had to sell the house. And who knows, who knows where we'd be at this point? Who knows if we'd have 4 kids? Like, I don't know any of that. Who knows what may have been different if it didn't happen that way. I've never really thought about it. You're making me replay things that's interesting. And there's definitely things, that can be learned from that. It's an interesting question.
That's what we do here, brother. That's why we don't have any canned questions. But yeah, so we have that in common. And I didn't realize, I actually came in a little bit afterwards trying to build, and I think you remember the real estate referral group, because I was doing AdWords and I was getting leads out of my area. Back then you could get AdWords and leads for like 10 cents.
Yeah, craziness.
Before it got, I wish I could go back to that time.
No kidding.
But crazy times. But yeah, building that asset, that one didn't pan out. Well, I guess it did pan out because then we went into making agents rich, and that's where we finally got the first product that hit. But here's what I wanted to ask you about that, because it took me a long time to get out of that funk. But have you noticed? This is what I see, and I'm wondering your take on it. As you put in more time, as you get more experience, as you do more deals or do more business or take more risk, have you noticed that when you hit those dips, you recover quicker, or is it still taking a while?
Uh, that's a great question. So I would say generally, yes. But that also, what I've noticed with me is I recover faster if I am in a growth mode, if I'm out there seeking to get better. And there have been times over the last few years where that doesn't happen, between having 4 young children and just other things. There are times where I find where I kind of get stuck in my own way of thinking. I'm not going through courses or reading books or listening to podcasts that are feeding my mind and keeping me kind of ahead of the game. And so those are directly correlated, right? If I hit a dip and I'm not growing, it takes me, a lot longer time to get out of that. And quite honestly, at the time of this recording, that's happened recently, where I felt like I've become stagnant, and therefore our business has become a little stagnant, and I've got to get better. I've got to start growing and getting different perspective and bringing in new experience and so forth. And so I think those things are definitely directly correlated, and oftentimes are probably the reason for the dip as well. I mean, sometimes those things are truly outside of your control. There can be things that happen in any business that truly you can look back and say, there's really nothing I could have done to avoid that. But a lot of times there are. You can see the writing on the wall or whatever, if you're in the right kind of mindset and you're bringing the right perspective and energy to the business every day. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I marvel at people that are able to do that so consistently. And just an aside, I think one of the reasons, like, I'm a huge Tim Ferriss guy, and I think one of the reasons why I love him is because he's so transparent. He never shies away from sharing hardships and things like that. And it makes him, it humanizes him, even though he's on some levels a bigger than life type of personality at this point. And B, it reminds me that everybody struggles with crap, right? Their crap may be different, but everybody does, right? And you got to kind of choose. Sometimes you got to pick and choose what you're going to have to work through. And you I think this was before I went live. You were talking about, you used the word balance, but you switched to harmonize, because it is hard to, like, if you try to balance everything, at some point it falls down, right? So the harmonization is more an accurate term. Like, there are costs. You have to weigh the cost of all your decisions. I'm someone that try to do my best to be someone that can have it all, right? So and bring that idea to our children that you can have it all if you approach it the right way. But the reality is, there's still going to be some times where you're going to have to choose one thing over the other. So for me, I'll give you an example of me. With 4 young kids, I've strategically chosen not to travel that much. And this has been for a long time. And that probably has had a direct correlation to my income, whether it be traveling for a seminar that might help me grow, or being able to travel. I've had offers to travel to speak at seminars. And not that I avoid it entirely, but I've just kind of strategically made the decision that, I might pursue that a little bit more once our kids are older. But I've chosen to be around as much as possible.
Why do you want to be around?
Because I don't know. I don't want to miss out on any of that. Like, my dad was and is awesome in so many ways, but I remember that they've always been kind of a small. They've owned different small businesses. Entrepreneurial, yes. Never really. Their businesses were always and have been always the kind of self-employed quadrant, where if they're not working, they're not making money. And I just remember him working like crazy. And not that he wasn't around per se, but I don't know. I just remembered that it's always stuck in my mind. So I just always wanted to make sure that that I can coach my kids' sports. B, that I'm here when they go to school and I'm here when they get home, and just be able to eat dinner together and just spend time together. It's always, I don't know. When we first started a family, that was what was driving, or the underlying why I wanted to build a business and build the type of business. That was the underlying driver to make sure that I'm here as much as possible and can spend as much time as possible with Pam, my wife, and with the four of them. And, to make sure that I don't miss any school concerts or whatever it might be. That's just kind of always been something that was a non-negotiable for me. And there's always exceptions, but for the most part, that's been the case. I haven't really had to miss much as far as that goes. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful and thankful to have the kind of business that I've been able to build and the kind of lifestyle that has been able to afford.
Oh, guess what? Time is up for this week. I know you were just getting into that, and I don't blame you because it was just getting good. But we're trying to keep these episodes under a half hour, so we split it up into two. We'll be back next week with part 2 of this interview. Make sure you tune in then, and if you love what you're hearing, why not share this episode with someone who will also love it? Thank you. Daddy's out.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.